technologies. He leads cross-functional teams to design scalable cloud-native and data-driven solutions that align technology with business strategy. Osaon brings deep expertise in product engineering, IT consulting, and emerging technologies such as AI, machine learning, and modern DevOps. He has a bachelor's degree in computer science and holds a certification in data science and machine learning from MIT IDSS and has successfully led technical deployments and solutions for enterprise clients across Africa. His work is rooted in one core principle: building solutions that deliver measurable business value today and into the future. Welcome, Osaon. It's lovely to have you on the call with us today.
Thank you for having me, yourselves. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. And our next speaker is Damilola Rusenwe. Damilola Rusenwe is a seasoned technology executive and the current sales leader for Sub-Saharan Africa at Amazon Web Services, AWS, where he leads strategic growth initiatives across enterprise, financial services, telcos, and public sector clients in the region. At AWS, Damilola has played a key role in driving cloud adoption in Africa, most notably supporting the launch of the AWS local zone in Lagos and guiding major customers such as CRC Credit Bureau in their migration efforts. His work focuses on enabling organizations to achieve greater resilience, performance, and innovation through cloud technologies tailored to local realities. He is widely respected for his ability to bridge the gap between vision and execution, helping businesses turn digital ambition into sustainable real-world impact. We're glad to have you here with us, Dami.
Yeah, happy to be here. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. And our final speaker is Mary, who will be joining us shortly. Oh, she's here. So our final speaker is Mary Mambo. Mary is a DevOps engineer with a rich background across roles in DevOps, site reliability, and platform engineering, as well as active contributions to open source projects. She's deeply engaged in advancing modern infrastructure practices, specializing in CI/CD, cloud platforms, and scalable deployment pipelines. Beyond her technical work, Mary is a passionate advocate for education and equity. She leads a non-profit initiative that empowers underprivileged youths with access to scholarships, online learning, and financial support for tech education, creating real pathways into digital economy. As a sought-after speaker and community trainer, she combines technical expertise with a heart for impact, inspiring others to build meaningful and inclusive careers in tech. It's great to have you with us here, Mary.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you on this webinar. So now moving on to our webinar. To ground this conversation, we want to move beyond the cloud is future narrative and talk about what it actually looks like today, specifically for African enterprises. To start us off, I would ask Dami to break down the types of cloud infrastructure available so we all speak the same language before we dive deeper. Dami, over to you.
Yeah. Hi, can you hear me? Hello. Okay, all right.
Hi, Dami, we can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. For the question, the breakdown of the cloud infrastructure available, what I actually see is the cloud is a combination of services. And in a lot of ways, we're moved away from just the cloud being infrastructure to being a combination of different services that is put together to achieve business aims. And that's how enterprises should look at cloud these days. It is not just compute storage. It is a whole lot more than that. The Gen AI on top of everything we're doing is cloud. The databases is cloud. So we need to look at it as a bunch of services and not just the infrastructure itself. And what those combination of services now do is really the enablement of business transformation. I don't know if I've been able to explain how we should look at cloud as we approach this conversation.
All right. Thank you, Dami, for that clear breakdown. Yes, so I know you've been able to tell us what we need to know about the cloud. Basically, fundamentally, the cloud is a combination of services. So we shouldn't just take it from the infrastructure point of view and feel like, oh, we are either talking about private, public, or we're talking about networks and all, but we're looking at even the services that we use currently. A ChatGPT, which is Gen AI, right? Which is also a form of the cloud. So all of these things just combines into what we'll be discussing today, which at the end of the day is an enabler of our businesses. Thank you so much for that. So we'd just like to build on that with some perspective from each of our speakers. So over to you, Mary. In your experience, how should African enterprises approach choosing between these cloud models, public, hybrid, or local? What are the trade-offs they need to be aware of?
Okay, thank you for that question. So what I would say is the type of cloud you end up using largely depends on the industry where you work. And I mean, each industry has like compliance rules and security rules. So if you're in maybe the health sector, they can say something like, oh, maybe you need to store your patient's data in a particular place. Yeah, some other sectors where they're like, okay, information gotten from a particular country has to stay in that country. So in situations like that, someone may lean towards getting a private cloud. And sometimes you can have a mixture of both, whereby maybe public facing information, you can put that on the public cloud, and then more like internal information can be on your private cloud. Another thing to consider is cost. Yeah, because most companies, especially like startups, they may not want to, like have a large budget for cloud at first because maybe they're not yet like public and whatnot. So they can also like mix these clouds. And some people can also have like some services on premises too. And I think that's was like maybe more cheaper to manage. So just a mix of everything. So it largely depends on your sector, like sector where your industry is, depends on cost, and sometimes depends on the expertise of your personnel, like the people you hire to work for you. Yeah, and sometimes it's also like, I mean, people's personal bias can come in. Maybe I may be more familiar with a particular type of cloud. I choose to use that for my business. So that those are like four factors that I think play a role in helping companies or businesses choose what type of cloud to build on.
All right, thank you, Mary, for that. Yes, so I think one key point that really stand out for us is we should go with the approach of what kind of sector am I playing in? Do I have data residency policies, compliance issues that I need to be aware of? What is the cost? What's my budget looking like? Do I have trained personnel who can handle the move, the migration to the cloud, or are we more hybrids? Do we want to go with a mix of the two of them? Do I have people with biases? So I think that's really spot on, and it's something that our businesses should think about before even adopting whatever cloud model we want to go with. Thanks for that, Mary. So our next question here is for Usain. Usain, many African businesses still hesitate to adopt cloud because of perceived risk around security, cost, or vendor lock-in. From your experience, which of these fears are still valid and which are outdated?
Thank you for that. Okay, I'll quickly just say this. 10 years ago, when people want to go into information systems, they consider a lot of things. And today, one of those key factors or risk that we still look at is cost management, security, and vendor locking. We look at those things. And again, we also look at things like um, the providing the right resource to manage your solutions in the cloud. So all of this put together is why a lot of people still think about going to the cloud. I think the topmost of it is the cost part of it, which a lot of organizations can actually make mistakes if they don't have the right resources at play or right capacity to manage the cloud. Today, as you know, most of the things we have in the cloud are actually from what we used to do on-prem, but have now been moved to the cloud and move some of the concerns to a cloud service provider, things like security, management, and like for those of us in third country, constant power, constant bandwidth to serve your pages to the clients. So all of that have been maybe moving into the cloud. We pushed it down to the cloud service provider. But however, people fear or people are afraid of the costs. So that is the more reason why you need to actually get expertise like solutions architect who will actually look at your solution end to end to be able to save on the cost so that you can manage your cost. And the cloud has done one thing for us. It gives you an easy entrance into the space. You can start small and you now continue to grow according to the size of your deployment or your target goal. So some of these things are what the cloud has come to do for us. But however, the issue of security, a lot of them still worry about security. And the cloud too has also done a lot by trying to by abiding by the policy of the area where you are spinning your cloud resource from. So we have a lot of policies that guard against that, and a lot of cloud service providers are beginning to now follow those policies or compliance so that they don't err in the side of the regulators. So that way you can actually get into the cloud successfully and in due course. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Jason. Right. So you've helped us see which of these fears are valid and ways that they have even been addressed currently. Things around cost management, where they could obviously get a solutions architect to help them do the mapping. They get the right resources. They don't what's it called now? They don't get too much resources, or they don't get the ones that are not necessary, right? So they just have the right fix for their business needs. And of course, something that you said that really stood out for me was around security. Knowing fully well that some of these cloud providers these days are able to comply with the data residency, data sovereignty policies within the countries that they are operating in. So business users should no longer be afraid about the security of their data, since they offer some of these policies, compliance policies and security measures already from the get-go. So thanks for that, Osaon. And our final question here is for Dami. Dami, we often hear cloud helps you scale faster, but what does that really mean for a mid-sized business? That's your typical SMEs that are trying to scale up and be more competitive in Africa. And obviously have budget constraints or limited in-house IT support.
Okay, so to put this in a very simple way, just imagine you want to start a business today and you want to serve, it's a retail shop, and you want to serve maybe 500,000 people in Lagos. But when you start this business, you are not going to have 500,000 people logging into your platform or whatever you're doing. You're not going to have that. So what the cloud allows you to do, number one, is start small. Start with what you need. All right. And so assuming that you have maybe just 10 customers coming to that platform, you start and you build in the infrastructure or the architecture in such a way that whenever you need to, or your business gets to 500,000, or you have a product that just gets 500,000 in, and people are logging into the system, the cloud allows you to scale immediately to meet the demands of those new 500,000 customers. So, but you're not paying, you're starting slow, but you're scaling and you're paying for what you use based on the number of customers you have and the infrastructure size you're growing. Now, you take that, that's a mid-sized business. But you realize that in Africa, for example, we've seen businesses scale to become global businesses. A mid-sized business wants to grow to be a large-sized business. So the cloud allows you to have that growth phase in sequence. You're not going to typically over-provision for hardware. If you're going to do that same thing on-prem, you're going to plan to say, okay, if I get 500,000 customers, what is the hardware I will need? So you buy for the 500,000 customer requirement. But the cloud, you do not need to do all of that. You can scale in tandem with the growth of your business. So when they say this cloud allows you scale, if you're a 1,000 customer business, if you're a 500,000 customer business, the cloud gives you the flexibility to manage your cost as your business grows. And that's really the beauty of working on the cloud.
All right. Thanks, Dami. So I think we've been able to address some of the fears from the African businesses, right? We've been able to demystify some of these myths that prevents them from fully adopting the cloud, where it doesn't matter whether you're a small business, a mid-level business, or even an enterprise, right? The cloud is for SMEs, basically, because you can scale as you grow, right? Whether you want more resources, you want fewer resources, you want to scale up, you want to scale down, you can do all of that with the cloud. And so we've been able to demystify those myths. Thank you once more, my panelists. So let's turn theory into reality, guys. So I would invite Usaon to walk us through a real Nigerian enterprise cloud journey, from legacy systems to full cloud adoption. This segment will break down what the business was trying to solve, the roadmap taken from assessment to execution, and the lessons learned, the mistakes that were made, and how value was ultimately delivered. Usaon, please take us behind the scenes of cloud adoption done right.
Okay, thank you. I will try as much as possible to explain this without mentioning the actual client. So I was part of a team that built an enterprise solution. It was a data center solution. A lot of things was put into play. They had a customer facing. We had in-house operational uh, uh, stack solutions or systems to operations in-house. And at the same time, they had another part of it that was more like an inventory. So the organization is a very big organization and it's a reseller of automobiles. And we decided that, look, what do we do? Let's build this thing. And their core business request was to have everything done in-house
Okay.
and on-prem.
Yeah, so sorry to
But
cut in,
we,
Usaon. Please, can you be more audible? Yes, Usaon and Dami, really.
so, okay, so we took everything, and the major request was for everything to be on-prem, and bought a lot of machines, bought a lot of OEM systems, did configurations and all of that. I was among the lead implementers for those solutions. I was actually part of the team that deployed some of these services and the hardware. It was the day we finished, I realized that, look, at that time, we were just beginning to warm into virtualization, which is the core technology behind the cloud today. I realized that we could have saved these clients at least 50% of what they spent. And if only we were ripe enough as both as an organization to do cloud, and at the same time, if this part of the world were already embracing the cloud technology. And of course, we've done our stuff, we've delivered, and the client started using it. A few years later, roughly 2 years, and they said, hey, cost of maintaining this thing is too high. We need to do something else. Then we had the opportunity to take them to the cloud. First of all, we're able to cut down on delivery time because a lot of all these things have already been provisioned for us on the cloud. But we just had to do was to consume some of the service and do some configurations. And when we did that, we were up and running within 2 months, and the client was happy. The client can see that they could even pull down their cost by almost 70% of what they had initially spent. So this is what the cloud comes to bring. Well, of course, a lot of people, you hear the buzzword out there and they tell you, hey, the cloud is expensive because one, you are not using the right set of engineers to do your job, and um, you are not articulating your target audience and your goal life target. Like Danny just said earlier, it depends on how many clients you have, who is your target audience, and what exactly are you trying to push out to them, and when do you think you will need to scale a lot of this, if it were to be on-prem, you consider it and put it into that on-prem deployment that very moment you are starting your budget for it. Then the following year, you want to do the same thing. Again, some of these engineers too, because they came from the on-prem environment to the cloud, they carry that same mentality to the cloud, and they just provision. It's more or less like the more the merrier. But the truth about it is that um, for the on-prem situation, you cannot really scale, except for you're just doing vertical scaling. But the cloud allows you to expand. You can do horizontal scaling, and you can even do it. A lot of them have the pay-as-you-go option, which was also very good for this client. So the client was very happy, and though I've left that organization, but to date I still know that they are using that cloud service. Thank you.
Thank you, Salon, for that case study. Yes, I think it was really insightful. And I like the fact that we could see some of the mistakes clearly, which might be things that some of us on this call might have experienced, whether currently or in our former lives, right? Where we tend to over provision or under provision, thinking that, oh, I just want everything to be running without actually taking into cognizance the exact resources that are necessary, right? And that would even lead us to spending more than we're meant to be. So with the cloud, we should always adopt the pay-as-you-go model. Let's try to scale and prevent over provisioning or under provisioning, because the cloud offers faster time to market, enhanced security, right, and scalability and flexibility. So thanks to Sound for that walkthrough. It was a very practical example. So now we'd like to hear from our audience. And to do this, we'll be launching a quick live poll titled, What's Stopping You from the Cloud? So now we want to understand, why have you not adopted the cloud? What is stopping you from using the cloud? Is it cost? Is it security concerns? Is it an internal skill gap? Or maybe you have legacy systems and you worry that they are too complex, right, to be migrated to the cloud? Or is it that you don't even have a clear business case? So we would love to hear your responses. We'd like to see them and know exactly what you're thinking. Please go ahead and just take the poll. All right. Thank you for participating. Your input will help us tailor our support and build solutions that would reflect the real challenges. So even from the poll, I can see that we mostly have internal skill gap, which is like the highest, right? Followed by costs, then security concerns, and then lack of clear business case. So that is good for us. Thank you so much for taking our poll. So now we'd just like to move into our panel discussion. We'll be revisiting some of the themes that we've heard so far and would invite our speakers to go deeper. Please, if you have any questions, drop them in the Q&A tab and we'll take a few before we close. Osaon, let's start with you. In your own opinion, right, where do you think most businesses go wrong when starting their cloud journey? Is it in the planning? Is it in the team structure, or trying to do too much too fast? Osaon, I think you're muted.
Okay, I said it's a bit of trying to do too much too fast, one, and the planning, and of course the team structure. Well, every solution actually starts from the need. Once you have identified the need, you start to look at who your target audience is and how you want to reach them, really. Now, when you now decide to use cloud for that, you probably need a couple of people to be on your team. And now this is where you can either make it or break it. If you don't have the right resources or the right resource on ground in terms of maybe like a product manager, of course, we've passed the business side where the business actually have the C-suite or the management of the organization come up and say, this is what they want to do. Now you start looking at the resource you will need for that. First of all, you need a business analyst who would also work with both product managers and product engineers. And of course, when they articulate these things and understand what your business is all about and this kind of solution you want to drive, they will be able to communicate to management the type of resource that is needed, even though they're part of the resource team, the type of resource is needed. The reason for this is that you are able to quickly understand your ideation stage to the end stage of your solution, right? And you are able to, they will be able to prove or point it to the management that these are the things they need for this. Now, like we already established on this call, you start small and you start to grow, right? So you have your team of designers. When your designers come in and design that, what they call a mock-up for your solution, this is the time where everybody now comes to the drawing board and say, this is what we want. Now, one of the mistakes that a lot of organizations make is that they end up putting their designers along with the developers. Now, when we're talking about designers, we're also talking about you have a product manager, you have a UI UX designer. At that point, you are just dealing with your UI. Now, with your UI, I would advise organizations to ensure that they can actually articulate what their journey is from the UI before developers start coding. Most organizations today, what happens is they put their UI team with the developers. Developer is waiting to start coding. Salary is already running for developers, and they're waiting for the UI team to bring up stuff. And there was a project I was involved in. I told them I want the UI at least they start two months before developers start coding. That way, when developers are busy coding, the UI is bringing up the remaining pages. It's not that they will be waiting for the UI. Now, with that, and a good solutions architect, they will be able to tell you, hey, this is what we need. This is when we need it. And nobody will be waiting. They would have done a lot of business cases and articulated the journey. Now, it's at that point too, a few months into that, of course, if you have your data engineers on the team, they'll be able to also say, at this point, this is what the data engineers will be needing to actually set the solution in the right direction. Now, one key thing that happens is that most times we don't come up with an MVP. Now, if you're looking at the MVP, most organizations think MVP is just most valuable product or most valuable product. And that also drives the type of audience that you are looking for. It's MVP is supposed to be something everybody can critique. So when you critique it, you are able to say, oh, this is not what we want. This is the direction we want to follow. And again, if your MVP is done right, you have your data team alongside, they'll be able to look at the product that you are trying to build and they'll begin to respond to what the critics are giving. So that's basically the feedbacks coming from those the feedback coming from the initial users. Some organizations, if you're already in the cloud or if you're already gone to production, you are trying to introduce new changes, they do what we call blue-green deployment or canary deployment, where you can now put these changes to a subset. And from there, you can manage your cost and articulate your journey as you move on. So when you have all of this, it's almost difficult for you. It's almost impossible to have a failed project or have a business that will not thrive. So this is my advice to a lot of organizations. Make sure you see that some organization will call it maybe the digital blueprint. So these are the kind of things that you will be looking out for as an organization to ensure you drive you get to the target goal or the target of that particular project. Thank you.
Thank you, Sound. So basically, these businesses have to get the strategy right from the start, right? Before even going into the cloud to prevent all of these issues and hurdles along the way. That was really insightful. Dami, do you have anything to add here?
No. Sound is quite spot on. The doing too many things too quickly. It's one of the major pitfalls of moving into the cloud. The business must be aligned to technology. If you have an idea and you have a winning, innovative solution, you need to now walk backwards and say, how do I achieve this solution, this innovation through technology at the least cost? So you put your best foot forward, then you can now start to scale with every other thing. I will try and break down a bit more, but spot on. Doing too many things at the same time would, give you a bad experience on the cloud.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Dami. So we just move on to our next question, and this is for Mary. So, Mary, we have discussed the differences between public cloud, right, and local private clouds. When might a business combine this, like say they want to go hybrid, and what needs to be in place to manage this successfully?
Okay, thank you for that question. So what should be in place for you to move between clouds? I'll say the first thing is you need to have a reason, like, okay, why do we want to take that
Sorry,
step?
Mary, could you be more audible?
Oh, okay, sorry, move closer. Can you hear me now? Yeah, okay. So I said the first thing is you need to have a reason. Why do you want to take that step? Then the next thing you need to look at is, do we have like personnel who are familiar with both clouds and can help us with it? Then the next thing you need to look at is, I think everybody should first have like should I call it a template or like a, my words fail me now. So you need to have like a template, like, okay, this is what it's gonna look like. Have your solution document, your infrastructure ready, and just have like maybe a test run first. And the next thing is you also need to consider the costs. What are the cost implications on the business, on management? And then a reason why businesses may choose to like use both clouds ties back to my first response. Sometimes issues of security, issues of cost, and also issues of I would say maybe new laws that have been maybe passed, and everyone is trying to like abide by the laws really. That guides the industry. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, so how, in addition to that, what do you think they need to put in place to manage this transition? What do you think they need to manage this blend? What should they have right from the start? I know you've mentioned having a blueprint, having an understanding of the costing.
So something else they should have in place before carrying out this change. Mm, I would say let's see. What else should they have in place to carry out this change? Okay, I would say I think every business should try to like have a conversation with the cloud providers to see if they are like maybe resources available or maybe some options available which can be tapped into to ensure that there's a smooth transition from one cloud to another, or have like maybe a way to share resources between both cloud. I know some cloud providers give you like the opportunity, like you can have a workload on maybe AWS and some workload on maybe Azure, something like that, and there's a tool to like manage communication between both of them. So that's another thing that's can be considered also.
Okay, thank you so much. So our next question here is for Dami. Dami, many organizations believe cloud is more expensive than their current infrastructure. Can you walk us through how cost and ROI should be measured without when adopting cloud beyond just the upfront price? And please try to be audible.
Okay, let me know if you can hear me very well. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, it's good now.
Audible enough for you?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's better.
All right, perfect. So to answer this question, there are two questions I typically ask CIOs. Are we measuring the right KPIs for ROI? All right. And typically when people measure ROI, they just go to the flat cost and take the cost versus cost and say, okay, it's more expensive. And after that first question, are we measuring the right KPIs? The next question is, how have you moved into the cloud? All right. So the first things is, are we measuring the right KPIs? There's some research that we've done severally across our business to say, look, where does cloud business value come from? And you'll be shocked. TCO, which is total cost of ownership, is actually less than 10% of where the value comes from. It is there's value, but there are other costs that are salient and not so salient as we might think, but CIOs tend to miss it out, or businesses tend to miss it out. The first one is number one is user productivity, risk mitigation. For example, if previously you've been having downtime and you're able to transit to the cloud, and these downtimes, typically reduce or totally eliminated, you forget the cost of downtime in your overall value of cloud business value. That's one. When you also move to the cloud, productivity from an IT staff perspective also changes. They're able to now do a lot more value-driven activities and tasks instead of the typical power down server, restart server, and things like that. A lot of those things are cost-driven, but we never really add it to the cost. And the final one, which is the biggest, is business productivity. And I like to define what that business productivity is what new features, how are you launching applications faster? How are you driving innovation? What are some of those things that you're not measuring? So business agility in itself, or business productivity, is a KPI that we need to now start to include. Number one, how many new applications are launched per year versus before when you were on-prem? Time to market for new applications. Because you're able to launch things faster, quicker, the time to market is shorter. Have you factored in the cost of that into whatever KPIs you're measuring as TCO? Deployment frequency, time to deploy to production, there's quite a lot. Customer retention, adoption of new features, because you're able to do a lot more quicker on the cloud. But some of these KPIs are so salient because they are not really measured by CIOs. So if we look at it and walk backwards from a lot of all these things I've spoken about IT productivity, I've spoken about business agility, I've also spoken about business resilience, the cost of failures that we've not put in. Then we now look at it overall TCO itself. Then we start to talk about the actual cost and the business value of cloud, which in every situation that I have encountered is much more beneficial than staying on-prem if you address all of these KPIs. Now, the next question I always ask is, how have you moved into the cloud? All right. We have, and I will try and break it down. There is a process of moving into the cloud. If you take what you have on-premise, and you like for like move everything into the cloud, we call that process a simple lift and shift. But that in itself will not give you the right value, because all you have done is mimic what you have on-prem in the cloud. So once you've done that initial first stage, you now start to right size all those instances. You start to measure your workloads, which instance type is being used optimally, what storage size is being used. You start to measure, and over the next 1 month, you get a true picture of your actual usage. At that point in time, you become optimized for the cloud. Now, this is the best state you need to be in before you can now get some of those real, price points where we have savings plan, we have reserved instance, which also gives you about 50 to 60% discount on when you first moved. So you see that there's a first phase, there's a second phase. The second phase is where you're now optimized. You get some of those pricing plans on the cloud, because a lot of these providers have those unique discounted pricing plans when you know what your workloads are looking like. So that's the second stage. How do you move into the cloud? Then the third stage is you have now moved in. You now realize that, look, I have some legacy applications that really are not optimal. You now decide that, okay, and I also have some databases that I need to start to move into managed databases, some licenses that I need to change, some applications that I need to replatform. That gives us a different approach of, it's almost like we call it the 7 R's: rehosting, replatforming. There's some applications that you will just say, okay, look, retain, retire, you don't need those ones. Some you need to refactor. All of that process takes you to the true optimized level. And this takes time. It's a process. And you don't have to do everything at once. But the first thing you need to first do is, number one, identify what workloads am I moving. Number one, the workloads must be critical to your business success, where you can immediately see business value. I'll stop there briefly to just see, am I still audible? Because I've been talking for quite a bit.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
All right, so it's always important to choose the right workloads. Are they customer facing? Because you can really see business value very quickly. Does it have significant impact on revenue? Pick those kind of workloads first. Make sure that you take them on that journey that I've just mentioned. Make sure that they're optimized. Then make sure that they're further truly optimized on the cloud. But if it starts and stop at the place where I call the lift and shift, phase one, you're not really going to get value. Then when you're now measuring all the KPIs, the ROIs, you need to factor in the improvements across your business as a unit. Everything, staff, IT, staff agility, business agility, all of those things factor into the cost. But typically what we see is businesses go, they have on-prem and they move and they're hit with the bill. There's no plan. What we do is take the customers on that journey. What is your innovation? How do you put that on the cloud? Use that one to drive business value. We'll build a business case for you to the board. Whatever business type you have, use that to get value first. Because true innovation, and I'll stop here now, true innovation really happens in the cloud. True innovation. Look at all the businesses that have transformed the way we live. They can only achieve that by launching those services on the cloud. Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much, Dami. I feel like you were just giving us points after points after points. It was like so many key things to take home, really. Thank you so much for that. So for the sake of time, right, we'll just move on to the next question, which is actually coming back to you, Dami. For regulated sectors like banking, healthcare, or government, how can organizations manage concerns around data residency, compliance, and control, especially when working with these global cloud providers?
So it's that is a very sensitive topic. Typically, most businesses across the world are, far ahead of the regulators. And so what you always see is businesses have to work backwards and usually enable, do a lot of trainings and enable the regulators. And I'm going to speak briefly into where I work now. The cloud is not just an IT job or an IT problem. The cloud belongs to the business. So risk managers, compliance, and auditors, there are different training paths for those kind of staff on each cloud provider. So we have something we call the Cloud Audit Academy, where you can walk through what compliance means on the cloud, because things are changing. So all the different parts of the business, from finance, audit, need to now understand what it means for the business to be going to the cloud. Once enterprises start to empower all their staff on that journey, then we can now work together and start to enable the regulators to say, look, this is what compliance means for your industry on the cloud. This is the impact of data residency on the cloud. This is where data is being stored. These are the certifications that cloud providers have. This is how you regulate people on the cloud. Do you understand? So it's a lot of enablement, and I've had the privilege to train quite a lot of regulators across Africa. It's an ongoing journey. It's never going to stop. Some places in Africa are a bit more open to the innovation that cloud brings. Some are a bit more stringent, but it is not from we want to stop innovation. It is more from, let us understand what we're facing. Then we can regulate it better. So we empower, and enterprises need to also start doing the same thing. Ensure your compliance teams and everybody start to get trained about what it means for your business to be running on the cloud. then you have enough resources to go to the regulators to say, let us work on this together. Because that is how Africa can truly become the giant it's supposed to be, through innovation.
Thank you for that. I love your closing points, right? So, Miri, I would just invite you to chip in. Do you have anything to add around compliance?
Okay, thank you. I actually support what Dami said. Everything revolves around regulators and the rules, and I think cloud providers are also like doing a very good job to ensure that a lot of compliance rules are being met. So there has to be that communication between businesses, like even though you're a startup or a mid-level business or an established business, you need to have like a relationship with whatever cloud providers that you are making use of, so that when maybe if a new rule like comes up in your industry and maybe your cloud provider may or may not like be aware, you can just like ship that in and debut something that can help you adhere to those rules. Yeah. Thank you.
So, having a relationship, a close relationship with your cloud provider is basically fundamental, right, in the cloud adoption business, especially in helping you keep to the compliance and what security controls, policies within that sector where you play. That's very insightful. And our final question here would be going to Osaon, then Mary in that order. So for Osaon first, you can have the best architecture, but without the right team or culture, cloud transformation fail. What role does leadership, training, and mindset shifts play in making cloud adoption sustainable?
Okay, thank you, Seth. Um,
Okay, please,
I
can you be
like the
more
way you put
audible?
it. You can have the right architecture, you have the right resource, and cloud implementation fail. Is that it?
That's it. So you have
Okay,
the best
so
architecture, you've done the blueprints and everything, but now you don't have the right team or culture, and cloud transformation has failed.
yes, I would tie it to a lot of two things actually. One, culture. Secondly, it's um, awareness. Let me put it that way. Awareness. So the reason why I said that is this. Today, you find in most businesses, um, right, the duty of any organization is to make profit, provide the best service to their clients, right? But like Dami had put it, key stakeholders still need to understand how things play out in the cloud. That way, you as an organization will be able to support the resource you have. Now, the reason why some of these things fail, take for example, when I explained earlier, I mentioned understand your target on this, understand your good life strategy, and you are able to communicate that to your audience and manage. Now, the reason for that is so that you can gradually manage and expand everything. But the thing is, what happens, like what my colleague had mentioned, Dami, he said lift and shift. A lot of administrators still do lift and shift today. Oh, once they look at that cloud, oh, I can create an instance in the cloud. They think it's the same way as we're doing it on-prem. Now, management is breathing down their necks to ensure that solutions go up or you go live. And once you go live, all they are seeing is bill and nothing to show for it. They forgot one thing. They did not articulate their target audience. They did not articulate their go live strategy. Now, this is when all the engineers, the sales team need the support from the decision makers, really. Decision makers are looking at money that's coming in, but the engineers are needing support to get by, to keep it alive. And when these two teams cannot come together and understand and be on the same plane, that's a recipe for failure already. Today we say MVP, most viable product, but people don't understand what that really means. I always like to identify it as the critic version of whatever solution you are bringing, which means it's your first step to failure. We always say fail quick and fail quick and recover or something. Fail quickly and recover from all these things. Eh, Today, when you have an MVP, it's almost like you have the good done next. Today, I always tell people, I don't know where I heard that from again, but from basic research, you know that a satisfied customer is a paying customer. And when the customer starts telling you, this is what I want, and you cannot give it to that customer, be rest assured that customer will go away or they'll move to the next person that supplies that solution. At that point, you probably just be at your first release, and your engineers are trying to, articulate or consider that customer or the customer's feedback so that they can improve on the next release. But hey, at the management level, we are looking at figures. Oh, what's this figure? How come we spend so amount of this? What has come in? When you start doing those things, you will fail the project. It's not as if the project has failed, but the project has just started and is starting to grow. That is where if you can bridge this gap, and the only way I think we can bridge this gap is having these stakeholders go into some of these courses, understand a lot about product management, a lot about product management and what it requires to satisfy some of these. A lot of tools in the cloud can help us do some of these things today and help us articulate and know exactly what direction our deployment should follow, what changes need to come into the deployment. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's only by getting these feedbacks and putting it back into the solution deployment. So this is why most projects fail. And basically, it's all about being patient. Like my colleague Dami just mentioned, he said, you have to be patient. You don't just put it there and expect everything to go away. You have to start learning through. And some of these learnings is, what have I spent? What does the customer need? How do I improve this customer with less? So that is the key advice I would give for that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Selon, for that. Please, let's keep dropping our questions in the Q&A tab before we go over to Mary to hear her perspective of this question.
Okay. Thank you for that. Osahon has actually answered that question really well. But what I'd add is there has to be should I say trainings held. So aside from engineers taking technical trainings to understand workloads, understand how the cloud can help them, how tools can help them, leadership also needs to have a training session so that they can get a clear picture on the efforts that goes into actually setting up these systems. And I feel like everyone on a team, I know on a team can have program managers, your business analyst, and everyone else. So I feel like everyone should at least have an idea or understand some aspect of cloud and the role cloud plays in building solutions and the people who build these solutions, what they actually have to face to build them. Because someone can say, oh, it's a simple feature, it should take maybe 1 day. But in actuality, it may not take a day due to some issues that may arise. So I feel like when there's that understanding that, okay, this solution can take XYZ number of days, everyone is better able to plan on timelines, most especially. And another thing that can be done, I feel senior management can also help to organize regular trainings and also upskilling opportunities for the engineers themselves. And I know everyone wants to move quickly, build fast, but we also need to be careful while we're building fast to ensure that we don't build the wrong thing, and to ensure that in building fast, we don't have people who are burnt out from maybe endless sleepless nights and all of that. So in summary, everyone should have an idea of how the cloud runs and the role of cloud in building a solution, and everyone should also be kind to each other. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Mary. Yes, so I think staff training is key, especially when it comes to cloud adoption, especially in our new age where you have different technology drives being outdated by the second. So everything is new. Every single day you go online, you see that, oh, there's a new trend, this has come up, oh, we're no longer doing this is outdated. So I think the staff should always be up to date in everything that they are up to, especially when it comes to cloud adoption. So thank you so much for that, our lovely speakers. So quickly, we'll be moving over to the Q&A section. I see that we've been having so many questions, lovely questions, really. I've just been looking at them from here. And so we'll just take one for our speakers to really address. So this one is from Joseph, and he's asking and stating that most businesses still rely on traditional infrastructure, meaning that there's still a major gap in awareness about what cloud adoption truly involves beyond just data storage. What practical steps can organizations take to build internal awareness and readiness, particularly among non-technical decision makers? So this would be going to Osahon first. So Sam, do you want to give us your... Okay, hi, Osan, you're muted.
So awareness is a continuous thing. You have to constantly keep everybody informed on what's happening. Now, I think for the engineers, I think they already have an understanding of that. Good engineers always want to keep upgrading their knowledge around a lot of things, even around business again. They try to do that. Now, at the stakeholder level, at the management level, a lot still needs to be done. Because I have moved from different part of my career, I've had several positions. I've had the opportunity to learn some of these things. One of them I found very, very, very valuable, and I think it cuts across understanding entire project management through innovation is product management. Maybe organizations can start looking at getting the C-level executives into product management trainings. The reason for that is, one, it will help them to understand the journey around these products. Even though they are not coming to execute it, they are not going to be the product manager that is just going to create awareness. So they will understand the language of both the engineers, the project managers, and even the customers. They will put all of that into consideration. So when you are on a project that is taking long, I know every organization wants to deploy and throw out the new innovation within 3 to 6 months. And forget that, you need to now grow the product. Growth needs to come into that. So again, when they can take out time, even if it's just a 2 or 3 day session, a single session, and they look at all of these things, they would learn to appreciate, or they will appreciate this more. As a matter of fact, there are some trainings out there that C-level executives will look at. They will begin to now ask engineers critical questions. How are you doing this? What's your strategy for XYZ? At this date, you are going to do this. We know that there's going to be some form of bottleneck or failure or whatever, or unsatisfied users. They will be the ones who, where are your metrics? How are you measuring this? How are you going to do this? So that if they tell you, oh, we are doing this at this time, it's not just, it won't sound like an excuse, which a lot of engineers are beginning to see. When engineers are trying to explain, it turns into, how do you say it now? There's a lot of misunderstanding coming from that place. Some organizations, yes, they put in a product manager, but the product managers too have issues trying to even bring all these teams together, especially with management. It becomes, what are you doing? Why are you still here? Why, stuff like that. When you understand a little bit of what is being done, you as the business owner would know when to expect certain things, and you'll be able to say, hey, we've put in so much at the teething stage of this solution. We need to be ready for this particular point where this thing goes live or when you are going
Yes.
for the next release, or we're going for the next iteration. So they will begin to see all of that and understand why certain things happen.
Yeah.
Basically,
Thank
that
you
is
so
what
much,
my own
Hassan.
take to that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Susan. Yeah, our time is fast spent. I see we have some questions, but for the sake of time, we really can't get to all of them. Yeah, so thank you, our lovely speakers, right, for sharing such rich insights with us, and to everyone who joined us today. So as we close, we want to make it easy for you to take action, not just notes. I know we've been lots of practicals and theory and everything, but now let's give you a game plan. So Hestech is offering a free cloud readiness assessment, which will be a guided session to help you understand where you are currently in your cloud adoption journey. Would help you identify opportunities based on your business goals and build a phased cloud adoption plan that you can actually implement. So you'll be receiving a link after this session to book your one-on-one consultation, along with the full webinar replay and a downloadable cloud readiness checklist. If today's session sparked some new interests or ideas or questions, we encourage you to continue the conversation with us. Whether you're at the exploration phase or mid-transition, we are here to support your journey. So on behalf of Hess Technologies, thank you for being a part of this insightful conversation. And we look forward to seeing you at the next edition of the Digital Shift series. Take care and goodbye for now. Bye.